Computer. All right, we are fired up.
Yay!
Yay! Well, welcome, Debbie, to Conversations with Caregivers. Would love for you to just introduce yourself and share a little bit about your caregiver experience, and we'll just chat about it.
Sounds good. Well, I am Debbie Walters, and my background is nursing. So, of course, my 4 other siblings, I kind of took on the role of main caregiver. And my dad was diagnosed probably 15 years ago with dementia and Lewy bodies. And so I would, of course, take him to all of his medical appointments. I remember back in the day at the med center, he was involved in the early trials for medications for Alzheimer's. And so that would require a lot of long appointments there. When Dad got to the point where he really could not function on his own, the poor man didn't even know what to do with the bar of soap. In the nurse in the family, I would go over and give him his showers 3 to 4 times a week. On call all the time when Mom had a problem, which meant I own my own business. So that meant me canceling appointments for the day, however long, income lost there, but always on call for your parents. And then having to be the hardest thing was having to be the one who actually assisted Mom with making the decision to place Dad.
Yes.
I kept asking her and she'd say, no, not now. And one time he's actually in the hospital with a UTI. And, with the older folks, you don't get the typical symptoms.
Yeah.
He was just confused and unable to mobilize, couldn't even get out of his chair. And so he was diagnosed with the UTI. And so I asked Mom, because, she was getting, Mom was 83 years old.
Right.
80 years old trying to do this, and physically and emotionally and mentally, you could just see her wearing out.
Yeah.
So I asked her, I said, Mom, are you at that point now? And she said, I think so. And I said, the reason I'm asking is because, of course, if Dad has that 72-hour stay, we can get some Medicare to assist with the first several months of placement and then get him into the VA, where she wanted him to go into the VA for long-term care. So that was the hardest decision. And of course, then it always continued from there, because you always have issues with facilities. And I was always the one up there. It's a long process. I mean, my sister and brothers were glad to have me take on that role. You get a little resentful, I think, at times, because you want to be the daughter and not the nurse, the decision maker on a lot of those things. And I think my brothers initially had some resentment when we put Dad in a facility, because I think typically boys aren't around as much. They don't take on the same, it's not that they don't care, they don't take on the same caregiver role as women tend to. And they weren't there as much as I was and my sister. And I remember you and I talked before that I told my brothers, I said, here's what you guys then decide. You wait a few months and you bury your mother, because she can't do it anymore. And then you decide what to do with your dad.
Right.
Or you put Dad in a facility and give Mom an emotional and a physical breather and a rest. I said, that's where it is. So, and I don't think they had considered that. They don't think about the severe stress that it puts on caregivers.
What's so interesting is I actually was speaking with a caregiver support group this week, and a couple of the people in the group had loved ones that they had recently placed in communities, and some had people that were there for a longer period of time. And they said, once you've had 4 weeks, 5 weeks to kind of rest up, in hindsight, you're like, well, could I have kept doing that? Could we have kept them at home? And like you just said, people really underestimate that the toll it's taking on your health. What was your time span? Like, from how many years or was this going on? Like, from when you started helping out?
It was probably a 2 to
Yeah.
3 year time span to where, dad was functional, and then of course you slowly see that decline.
Mhm.
And I don't think it was so much the decline cognitively, mentally, it was more the decline physically that forced us to make that decision. Um, and mom felt like she was on call 24 hours a day.
Yeah,
If she wasn't in the same room with dad, he was constantly calling her name.
sure.
At nighttime, they always slept in separate rooms from the time I can remember because my dad snored so bad.
Yeah.
So it was always separate beds, separate beds when we were growing up.
Yeah.
And then in the houses when the kids moved out, mom quickly put dad in his own room. And then when they built their villa, he was in his own room. But 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, she'd be in his room dealing with, him not understanding his depends and just tearing the
Mm.
inside of the depends out. And here this 80-some-year-old woman is in there at 2 in the morning, picking up 50 some plus little urine soaked little depends things and
Oh my
things that my
gosh.
brothers and things didn't realize, initially that was happening. And,
Right.
and changing sheets and physically getting this man up and down. And yeah, so it was about 2 or 3 years,
Yeah. Well, sheet changing made me think of like under normal circumstances, how often are you and I changing our sheets? And when you're
Yes.
in a situation like that, you really are almost having to do it daily.
She did toward the end, she did not have a night where she was not being called by him
Yeah.
or where she didn't have to go in and help him. So
Yeah.
she wasn't only not resting much during the day, but she wasn't getting rest at night. And then physically, we got to the point where mobility was an issue.
Mhm.
And the nice thing about him having mobility issues is that we never had to worry about him wandering.
Yes.
That was a blessing. But it started to take a toll on her shoulders and her arthritis,
Yeah.
and she's a short little thing, dad was a tall man. So yeah, when you see it close up, and I don't think my brothers saw it close up like my sister and I, because
Mhm.
I remember my husband was such a blessing. He's not Catholic. He was raised Baptist, but for years this man would go to church with us every Sunday because my parents, who were devout Catholics, would not have been able to even go to church had we not taken them because dad was in a wheelchair. Mom couldn't pick up a 50-some pound wheelchair and put it in and
Right.
out of the vehicle. So we did that for years because my sister and brothers really had nobody ever stepped up and said, "Hey, would you like us to take a Sunday?"
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just all those little things that we take for granted now, but when somebody can't do them
Right.
and somebody else is stepping in, it's yeah, it took a toll. And the thing I think that was hard on mom is that dad never realized how much work he was.
Right.
He just thought, well, I'm just here,
Right.
and I'm not calling her all the time. And I know when we put him in adult daycare at Maple Rose 2 days a week, I said, Dad, mom needs a break from you. Why? I
Right.
just sit and watch TV. I said, no, Dad, you don't. He goes, well, I'm not going. I said, you're going and you're going to have fun.
Yeah.
And then after the first day, and of course then that was put on me too. My sister was over at his house, getting him in the bathroom and helping him groom. And then of course, Debbie had to be the fall guy.
Right. Yeah.
I remember she was in the bathroom and dad goes, who just came in? Because mom took off. She went shopping.
Good for
And
her.
I know, and my dad says, who's there? And Roxanne says, it's Debbie. It's that middle daughter. Remember the one that's going to make you go to that place you don't want to go to? Because she would just fuel him,
Yeah.
and get him going.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but after the first day, he looked forward to going.
Yeah, because it's a change of scene, and I think
It is.
under normal circumstances, I don't think any of us realize how much work we are for the other people in our lives.
And that was the whole thing. Dad would never made a connection
Yeah.
And when he went into that nursing home, he was at one for 3 months, which was absolutely a horrible experience.
Oh no.
For mom and everybody. We were able to get him on the list. The list was much shorter than for VA, and they were phenomenal.
Good.
They were good. So yeah, but that was hard because he couldn't understand why he wasn't coming home.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it's a brutal transition time
Mm-hmm.
when you're
It
trying
really
to make
is.
that decision.
Yeah, and you never forget the look in those eyes
Yeah.
when we'd come to visit or when we'd leave. He couldn't connect it. So, you know, you hate to see your loved one go through those stages of losing more and more cognitive ability. But when you deal with something like that, with the sadness and not understanding why we're leaving him there, you pray for the day to come so soon to where he doesn't remember anything.
Right.
You know, for his benefit and my mom's.
Right. So what would you share for a family that is at that point where they're trying to make this decision? You know, I'm going to push this video up to YouTube shortly. And so the holidays are coming and families are going to be together and they're going to be observing kind of what's going on at the parents' house. How do you wrap your head and heart around it?
It's hard because the siblings are not usually going to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Everybody's coming from a different point of reference. So somebody just has to kind of step up and take on that bad role, you know, good cop, bad cop. And that was me with my sister's support. And gradually my brothers came along with that. I think, you know, if they still hold some resentment, I'm okay with that because they didn't have the same point of reference I did because they chose not to be as involved as my sister and I were. So I think it's just, you know, you can sit down and you can talk about it. I think the main thing for siblings to look at is to objectively look at the toll that it's taking on their caregiver. And if it's a hard decision for them to make to put mom or dad in placement, they have to look at the brutal reality that we're going to have to face this decision at some point. Do we want to give the other parent a rest and some peace of mind?
Right.
Or do we want to drag them down? Do we want to wait for our own benefit because we don't want to do it? But do we want to wait until we have to bury that other parent and then we still have to make that decision? And that's kind of where it was for myself and for my sister. And plus, it had taken mom a couple years to get to that point.
Right.
We would always say, no, I'm not ready. I can do this. And finally I said, Mom, the decision's going to be yours still, but it's good timing now as far as dad being impatient.
Right.
I said, Mom, I'll support whatever you do. So yeah, I think the siblings just have to sit down and think, okay, where are we at with reality with the caregiver now?
Right. You know, and it's so interesting. I was really blessed because when I took care of my grandmothers, everybody was on the same page and I really had the autonomy to do it my way, I guess.
Yes.
You could say. And I had a lot of support. So I didn't have the dynamics that so many families have.
Yes. Yes.
And really, if you are an out of town sibling or a secondary caregiver, just really trying to have some patience and understanding from that other perspective, from the people who are in the trenches on the day to day.
Right.
Because it's so hard to know what battles they're facing.
It is true. And I think the siblings have to realize that you may not get everybody's blessing.
Right.
And everybody's not going to agree with you because they are coming from a different perspective.
Right.
They are not as involved as you are. And for me, I had to be okay with that. I had taken care of dad for years.
Right.
I had seen what he struggled with. I saw what mom struggled with. And I don't know if that nursing background gave me a little different perspective. I'm not sure. But you have to be okay with the fact that you are going to have siblings that are not going to be on the same page.
Right.
And you have to go with your gut, and you're doing at that point, the decision has to be what's best for the caregiver.
Yes. And really, in many circumstances, the person, once they do move into a community and they're placed, they actually begin to thrive because the schedule is so set and the routines are so consistent that they actually perk up. I think the baseline that I would say for families is to remember what is our intent kind of what's our baseline as family members is one, we all love mom and dad. Like, can we agree? Like, what can we agree on?
What can we agree on? Yeah. Yeah.
We all love them. Health issues are important. Safety issues are important. So then once we've established those as some baseline foundational, things, then we can start talking about how we go about it may be different.
Right, right. And the fact that to outline the pros and the cons.
Yes.
Not only how it's going to be affecting the caregiver, but what, like you said, what things are going to be happening when they are, in a facility. And we knew that for quite a while until, dad's mobility got really bad. We would still take dad out. We'd pick him up. We'd go for rides. We'd drive through Dairy Queen. We'd get a cone. He was still here for family dinners, family holidays. So, you can still be involved with all of that. But just to see, and it was a rough transition for 3 months while he was at this other care facility. It was not good there.
Yeah.
You have to go in knowing that, do the best you can. But once he got placed in VA and things were so much better, just to see the relief on mom's face,
right?
And emotionally, and to be able to call her and say, "Where are you now?" "Oh, I went through Taco Bell to get myself a taco and a pop." Things that she couldn't do, even the littlest things that she couldn't do before.
Well, and to your point, every solution brings its own new set of problems.
Yes, you do. And it's problem solving and troubleshoot as you go along. You have to expect that.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is relief and gain in one area, but like you said, when you change it up and move to communal living and, there's the own dynamics of that to kind of work through.
There are. Yeah, definitely.
And you're on call. You're still on call.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
It took me a long time to not flinch when the phone rang.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And with again, being the nurse in the family, I was the one up there when there were issues and trying to communicate nicely, what the needs are and what concerns are. But you deal with those things when your loved one's at home too. You're always troubleshooting.
Yeah.
You are. And as long as, and the thing is too, to look at, could we have brought, looking hindsight, could we have brought home and help into the home? Possibly, but then there's that expense with that too.
What's so interesting is I met Glenn Campbell's wife, Kim Campbell.
Really?
Yes. Years ago, she was on tour for their I'm Still Me, I think is the title of his documentary. This was like 6 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And she said, I have unlimited resources and I have, the space, all the things that would seemingly be successful for us to have in-home care. I had 5 people around the clock. I couldn't do it at home. There just came a point at which it just wasn't working.
Right.
Because he only wanted me. And so I just was I never had the space. So that really profoundly impacted me because I think a lot of times when we have people at home, we think, well, if I just had that extra room, if I just had more money, for in-home care, then I would be able to do it. And I think that we beat ourselves up as caregivers.
You do. And I remember I was just dreading putting dad in a facility. This was before he got the UTI and the infection. And I told mom, I said, Mom, maybe I'll just redo my home. Maybe I'll just bring dad here and take him here. And she said, absolutely not. She says, I'm putting my foot down. You do not have permission to bring dad into your home and care for him.
Interesting.
Yeah. She says, I am not going to allow you to do that. You do. And my mom never got firm, but she said, you are not allowed under any circumstances. You don't know. She said, you don't understand what that even involves.
Wow. And no. I mean, what a woman, because she said, I will take on this responsibility and wait. Yeah. But I won't allow anybody else.
Yeah. And it's weird because I felt like a little kid being told, no, you can't have a cupcake, you know, because my mom never really got firm, and she did, her facial expressions change, and she said, absolutely not. You will not be allowed to do that. No. So.
Yeah. That's impressive. Well, do you have any just final thoughts or words of wisdom just for somebody else who's on this journey right now?
Well, it's like you and I had talked before, and I'll do it without crying. You know, it's weird. Dad's been gone 12 years and it's still emotional.
Yeah, it's very raw.
I think we all want to make sure that our loved ones feel secure. And I don't remember what the conversation was. Dad maybe brought it up about having to leave or something. And I said, Dad, I promise you, you will never go to a nursing home.
Yeah.
Never, ever make that promise, even with the best intention. Because at the time, even with my medical background, I did not allow myself, at that moment, I was being a daughter and not a nurse when I said that to him, because I wasn't looking at his disease was going to progress.
Right.
There was going to be a point where, yeah, it's okay now. He can still use a walker. And yeah, he didn't know what to do with the bar of soap, but he could still get around and eat and things like that. So that statement came from a daughter and not somebody looking from the outside in. But if you can at all avoid it, never, ever say that to your loved one, because they remember that. And I remember apologizing to my dad literally on his deathbed 2 hours before he passed.
Oh my God.
And I was there by myself because, of course, being a nurse in the family, we'd all gone up the night before, and they said, you know, this won't be long. Yeah. So of course my brothers and sisters, well, Debbie, you go up in the morning and call us and let us know how he's doing. Okay, I'll be up there at 8 in the morning. And so then I had to call everybody and say, Dad's passing. So it was just him and I, but whether or not he knew what I was even talking about, I don't know, but I felt relief in being able to say that. So never, ever promise your loved ones that they will always remain in their home, because that's a promise that it's impossible to really, on most circumstances, to keep.
Right. And I think part of that is there's, in the moment, your intentions are so good and pure. But like you said, you don't know how things are going to progress, and everybody has their limits, their bandwidth, their capacity. And also there's preconceived notions about what those places are like and what they do and how they do it. And really there's magic that happens in the buildings. And so just not to be afraid of that, I think is wise.
True. Because Dad he was in the memory unit at VA, and those people loved him.
Yeah.
And he, like you said, he thrived there, until he could mobilize and had to go in the medical surgical unit. But he got more attention there, and more activity going on, just things to look at, things to watch, and not just sit in his chair and watch TV. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciated your time.
Yes.
All right. You have a good day.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.